Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Tokyo Revengers episode 12, Revenge. At this point, Naoto is on his way to pick up Takemichi, who is currently at Akun's place where he's apprenticing for being a hairstylist. He picks Takemichi up and they head to go see Hina. And during this car ride, we start to learn a little bit about what's happened with Hina since, I guess, Takemichi saved her. But basically, the incident where Hina was killed didn't happen, and now she's able to go become a grade school teacher. And she even has her own apartment, so she's doing good. As Takemichi and Naoto are headed up to her apartment, however, Takemichi gets hit with the memory of Hina breaking up with him and then just leaving him in the dust. He also comes to the realization that, as far as she's concerned, it's been about 12 years since they've probably broken up and since they have last seen each other. So even though to him it'll be this big reunion now that she's alive and he did all this stuff to save her, from her perspective, he's basically just some guy, some ex-boyfriend that she had when she was in middle school. So him being there with Naoto might be a little weird and she might not care all that much. Takemichi tells Naoto to go on without him and go see his sister, and Takemichi decides to go ahead and leave the apartment complex, leaving the two siblings to see each other. Once again, I have to question, I guess, which timeline of memories Naoto currently has. Like, to him, is this just him going to go see his sister like he does probably pretty often, and he just happened to remember that Takemichi probably wants to see her? Or is he in a similar boat to Takemichi, where his only memories are of her dying and that timeline? So this will be him meeting her for the first, well, I guess not first time, but him seeing her alive when he thought she was dead. But there's also the possibility that he has both sets of memories. So he has all the memories of he and his sister growing up with this new timeline, but was also hit with the memories of everything Takemichi did to save her and all of that. Unfortunately for Takemichi, however, on his way out of the building, he happens to bump right into Hina as she is walking into it. And of course, Hina, being Hina, automatically recognizes Takemichi, and Takemichi instantly starts crying and starts having all these flashbacks about all the time that they've spent together. I noticed pretty quickly that Hina at this point is still wearing that clover necklace that Takemichi had given to her, which is really cute and makes you wonder why she broke up with him. I guess that she must have invited him up for coffee or something, because suddenly they are in her apartment with Naoto sitting there. Naoto is getting pretty annoyed because both her and Takemichi are awkwardly sitting there, not saying anything. Quite literally, the only thing Takemichi can think about talking about is the weather. Naoto, not a fan of such conversation, gets up and begins to leave. However, Takemichi literally jumps and clings to his leg, begging him to stay, because if he and Hina are left alone, his heart is going to jump out of his chest because he is so damn nervous and cannot think what to talk about. Naoto, being a bro, offers to take them out for a drive in hopes that that might, get the conversation going and these two can finally start to catch up. However, to Naoto's annoyance, they both end up in the exact same place that they were while inside, of just nervously looking in opposite directions and not talking to each other. At some point while they're still in the apartment, Takemichi realized that Hina is still wearing that clover necklace that he had given her. However, in this car ride, he's now kind of convinced himself that that necklace is not the same one that he had gotten her, and she had in fact gone out and bought a different necklace that just happens to look the exact same as the one that he bought her. But like, dude, that would be maybe not a great conversation starter, but it's a conversation starter. You could just ask her if that's the necklace or something, ask her about her job. But Takemichi, being the nervous wreck he is stuck, unable to come up with a conversation topic. And that is when Naoto gets a phone call that is telling him to come back to work. I guess something happened and Naoto has to help out. I don't remember if I ever shared this theory, but there was a moment in time when I had thought that there's a possibility that Naoto wasn't still employed by the police department and he was acting on his own in this sort of thing, but I guess that was wrong. That's how it be sometime. Naoto gets out of the car, hands Hina the keys, and begins to walk into work, leaving these two alone to hopefully finally get some conversation going. Hina decides to find a place for them to park so that way they can take a little bit of a walk together. During this walk, they come upon this beautiful view of the river with the lit up Ferris wheel across it. It's a beautiful open night sky. It is just a really amazing place that they're in right now. Hina then tells Takemichi that this is a place where she came with the person that she loves on Christmas Eve. Takemichi has no memory of this, so he thinks that it's with another guy. And he kind of starts talking himself through, of course she came here with another guy, she is an adult, and it has been 12 years since we broke up, which is a totally normal and understandable thing to think. However, I think with the whole timeline change thing happening, he might be misunderstanding something, or maybe not misunderstanding, but doesn't realize a change that happened in the past that contradicts his current memory. Hina then tells Takemichi that the guy that she loves broke up with her on that Christmas Eve, and she doesn't understand why she was dumped then. And that is when she turns around with tears in her eyes and asks Takemichi why she was dumped then. The wheels begin turning in Takemichi's head, and he realizes that it was probably him who did that. Of course, he doesn't have any memories of it, so he's also confused. And in this super tense moment with Hina, Takemichi, the master of making great decisions, decides that he has to go to the bathroom and tells her to wait in the car, and he runs away. I cannot believe this man. While he is in the bathroom, he starts to think about, obviously, the situation that just happened. Takemichi clearly remembers being the one who got broken up with, so he really has no memory of whatever she's talking about. But, you know, again, this is a different timeline, so things could have gone completely different. In fact, when he was spending time in the past, they had a lot of really nice moments together that brought them closer together. And one of those moments, if not, you know, the culmination of all of them, stopped whatever caused her to break up with him in the first timeline. Takemichi kind of decides that it doesn't matter, and he gets a little bit of resolve and decides that he is going to ask her out and try to live that happy life with Hina that he has always wanted. And by always wanted, I mean has wanted for the past like 3 months. On his way out of the bathroom, Takemichi seems to be having a day of this, but he bumps into somebody on his way out, and the person looks at him and says, "Huh, you're not in the car." And just judging by the person's hair, I was instantly able to guess that it was probably Hanma. Between the hair and his, I guess, tone of voice, it was pretty easy to tell. Hanma then starts to walk away and mutters something about hoping he could take care of both of them at the same time, and he puts his hand on the back of his head to scratch it, and that is when we see that punishment tattoo, and Takemichi is able to put together that was definitely Hanma. And since that was definitely Hanma, Takemichi takes what he just said a little bit more seriously and starts to sprint towards Hina, who is waiting in the car. As Takemichi gets to the car, he unfortunately is a little bit too late because a vehicle starts headed full speed towards the car that she's in and crushes the car up against the wall. Takemichi runs into the wreckage trying to see if Hina is okay. However, as he runs past the car that crashed into her, Takemichi hears his name called out from the car that crashed into her. And tragically, the person in that car was none other than Akun. And Akun asks Takemichi why he wasn't in the car. And at this point, since Akun literally just drove full speed into another car that went up against a wall, Akun is looking pretty messed up. He has shards of glass in his face, he is bleeding out of his forehead, he is not looking good. And of course, Takemichi has to know why Akun, one of his best friends, would try to kill him and Hina. As far as Takemichi is concerned, he's out of Tomen. He's become a hairstylist. He's been saved. He should be happy. However, Akun tells him that he is one of Kisaki's soldiers and everybody in Tomen obeys Kisaki. He also basically repeats everything that he said in the other timeline before he killed himself, once again saying that he is absolutely scared of Kisaki, and he asks Takemichi to save everyone, our crybaby hero. That right there shows that Kisaki is way bigger a threat than Naoto and Takemichi realized. They had assumed that if he wasn't able to corrupt Mikey at that point, then everything would be fine. However, and at this point I'm assuming that Hanma is working under Kisaki, considering everything that's happened, but since the original timeline had that whole plan about, taking over Mobius to take over Tomen, he wouldn't be stopped by that plan's failure, and would instead just kind of shift gears into a new plan and all that sort of stuff. So they definitely did not take Kisaki as seriously as they should have in the past, and well, here they are now. As for why he and Hina had been targeted this time, I'm not sure. It could have just been because of Takemichi's involvement in the past and how that thing turned out. He is the one who saved Draken, so he probably had a pretty big target painted on his back. Shortly after Akun tells Takemichi all this stuff, a wire goes down and makes contact with some of the gasoline that's been leaking, and the entire car explodes, probably killing Akun and throwing Takemichi away from the car, and more than likely trapping Hina in the other car even worse than she may have been before. Takemichi gets back up, runs to the car that Hina is in, pries open the door, and tries to wake her up and tell her that they are getting out of there. However, all Hina does is thank him and says that she probably won't be able to leave, as she looks down and she has been impaled by the dashboard of the car and will not be able to get out. Takemichi then reaches over, hugs her, and tells her that he loves her, and she says that she's happy to hear that. However, she also tells him that he has to leave because she doesn't want somebody who's so important to her to die. And she pushes him out of the car and is able to get one last smile at him before the car explodes, killing Hina. Takemichi is once again thrown back by the explosion, but this time, when he gets up, he declares that he will keep going back in time until he can find a future where they can be together and happy. He also then declares that he will become the head of Tomen. Now, considering Mikey is the current, or at least was the head of Tomen, that's going to be a pretty big task, but I assume he's come to the realization that the only way to completely stop Kisaki is going to be to not let him take over Tomen. And personally, I can't think of another way to do it, so I think he's got a good plan. How he will execute the plan, we'll have to see. But that concludes Tokyo Revengers episode 12 and the very first season of Tokyo Revengers. I will now personally have to avoid all manga spoilers up until the release of the second season, assuming that it is getting a second season, and I will again talk about, in the same format that I did this time, about season 2 when that eventually releases, so look forward to that. So far, I really like how much they've been building up Kisaki. as we have this entire season of them building up to whether they'll stop Kiseki or not. However, we have still only ever seen Kiseki once, and it was like as a side character walking past Takemichi one time. But other than that, everything that's been happening, everything that they've been working towards, Takemichi and Naoto, has been a product of what Kiseki does and this person that he becomes. So they're building up a really good villain here, and I'm excited to see what will happen next season. With this season now completed, I'm going to be looking towards the next season of, or I guess the next set of seasonal anime to see what I should talk about next. If you guys have something you'd like to hear me talk about, please let me know in the comments, or email me, or shoot me a message on Twitter, or at me at Twitter, or really anything, or even like Reddit, because we have Reddit. Yeah, just let me know if you guys want me to talk about anything, and I would love to take a look at it. So I hope you guys will stick around for the next season that I talk about, or the next show that I talk about, and all of that. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please at me on Twitter, tell me what you thought and all that. If you're listening on YouTube, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I will see you guys in the next one.